questions, Jenny, that you did have, what we'll do is we'll leave those to the end of today's session, and then we can go through your questions.
Okay.
So we'll start with the settings today. Okay, so your settings for tax prep in iFirm can be found underneath settings and then tax prep. Okay, so we do have many options here, and it's sort of a one-stop shop for all of the settings. So that's a little different than the desktop where you had to go kind of version by version, open up the actual program, make your changes to your settings. We can do it all here. And a lot of the sections that we'll see today are quite similar to what you were used to in the desktop version. It just looks a little bit different. So same with the desktop version. The first thing that you would need to set up is your prepare profiles. Okay. So prepare profiles, as usual, they just determine the different settings within the return, and also it does, in some cases, you know, sort of say how things are calculated within the return. Okay, so up at the top, we do have the different versions of tax prep. So T2 will have its own prepare profile, same with T3 and with forms as well. Okay, you'll also notice that we do have a taxation year here as well. So this is the taxation year that this does apply to. Okay, and you can go as far back as 2017. With T1, for example. Are you planning to bring in older returns?
Not necessarily at this point. I believe those old versions still on our, unless we decided to remove all these tax prep applications for all the years. Otherwise, for the time being, I don't think so. Jen?
I mean, normally, normal reassessment or extended reassessment period that would go back 6 years. I mean, how frequently do we access returns older than 2017?
Yeah, prompt tax time, yes, but the problem probably I'm gonna concern about is if we got some engagement and we have to do catch-up filing, so some of the returns will be left on the CCH iFirm, and all the rest is gonna be sitting on our drive. Yeah. So we'll make a decision. I think that we don't have to make a decision now, right?
No, not necessary, no. It's just to provoke that conversation. Always remember you do have access to the tax prep archives. So even when your current subscription sort of runs out for the tax office software, you still will have access to the archive version and the new archive version that will be coming out shortly.
Right.
So you don't necessarily have to bring in older returns. I do have some firms that they just bring in the sort of last year's return and then roll forward from there. Okay. A consideration if you are bringing in returns from a previous year is that you have to ensure that the prepare profile is set up exactly the same as it is in the tax prep desktop version. Okay, because if you don't, it will recalculate the return when you open it in iFirm tax prep. So then it would be incorrect. Okay, so just ensure you do have a prepare profile set up for any of those previous years if you are going to use them. And what you can do is
prepare profiles, if that's okay.
Sorry?
Like, what goes into it? Like, so I just understand. It basically rolls forward.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if they give me all of the forms, then we choose which ones we print, which ones we don't print. Name, firm name, whatever the case may be, our file authorization number.
Yeah. that can roll forward. So usually if you are bringing in previous year's returns or preparing them in iFirm Tax Prep, I say go to the last year that you're going to use. So like 2017, you create it. Then you go to 2018 here. You hit roll forward and you select that profile that you're going to roll forward. And it's as simple as that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So but as new forms get released, because what Jenny and I would do on an annual basis, the profile would roll forward in the desktop version. And we would go in and basically look at the new forms that showed up and made a decision whether they're applicable, not applicable, print, don't print, that type of stuff. So that's essentially the same thing in the iFirm situation.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So you would need to roll forward like your print formats, your prepare profiles. And if there is anything different, especially after a roll forward, whether it's between previous years or let's say from 2023 to 2024, I always recommend coming into that one for 2024 when you roll it forward and just taking a look at it because some of the options can change year over year.
Are we able to import our rep letters and cover letters?
You can import client letters. That is the only item that is importable from the desktop version.
Right, because we have sort of it's a template, it's a tax template for a client letter, but we've modified it as we've inserted our letterhead, our logo and such. For the firm signature, so when we click, print client copy, it would generate a PDF package that would have the cover letter, summary of the return, the relevant forms, whatever the case may be. I'm just trying to figure out whether or not that will remain similar.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's, as I like to say, there's really not much in the way of surprises between the desktop version and the iFirm Tax Prep version.
Okay.
As far as settings go, it's very, very similar. It's just, as I said, looks a little different than you're used to. So you can add your own prepare profile. So currently, do you use more than one?
No, we have just KRP.
Yeah, just the one. Okay, so you're going to have one in your system already that says default. You just can click on it and you can rename this one. So you could name that here. Yeah, or whatever you'd like to name it. You don't have to leave it as default.
Okay.
Okay. And our first tab is going to be general information. So that is exactly the way it is in the desktop version. It's your accounting firm's address as it would appear in the return.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you just enter that information here. Okay. You can have a different address for forms like 776, 2125, etc. Or you can use the information that you have already populated up above. Okay, so if I check off this box here,
Prepare the statement.
it'll use whatever's above. Okay. If you uncheck this, you will need to enter details here. And I have the different contact persons for the different forms. Okay. And you can use the same address as above with a lot of these forms. So in this case, I have indicated that my address is the same with these forms as above. Let's go down here to the options for the returns. Okay, so language of correspondence. So this answers that question that the language of correspondence for your clients will be English.
I'm glad you only have to change it once. Not in every single return.
Do you have any French-speaking clients?
One.
One? Okay. So you can have it set so that when you prepare the return for that client, that it does switch the language to French automatically. Okay, So this is what this option indicates, is that you're going to activate that. Okay. And then all you have to do in the contact record for your client to activate this is you pick your client, contact record, you edit the details, and you set the communication language to French here. Okay.
So
And
then when we prepare the return, it will print and generate and file in French.
you got it. Exactly.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Okay, taxpayer has paid to have the return prepared. You obviously want that checked. And you can add a customized note to the last page of the return, to the 2-year and 5-year comparative reviews, and at the bottom of financial statements. So when you enter a text here, it will appear on those items if you have it checked off and if you have the customized note selected.
I don't think we have any KFC.
Or financial statement.
So do not allow email address entry on any forms in the return. So anywhere you could put the client's email address. If this is checked off, it will not allow you to enter an email address. And here's the registration for email notifications for my account. So we recommend, same as desktop, that the second option is checked. Because what will happen in the ID form is that it will default the answer to no to register the client for e-notifications with CRA. Okay. If they have already been registered, it will say already registered. Whereas if you check off this box here, it will default the answer to yes for all of your clients, which is more than likely what you don't want to happen. We can also lock that question to no. Okay, so what this will do, if checked off, will not allow a user to switch the answer to yes. Let's go down here. Okay, same as with the desktop version. For the comparative reviews, the accountant summary and coupling worksheet, you can choose variable or fixed printing and display. So variable is the printing and displaying of any fields that do have a value. Fixed is showing every single field or printing every single field on these items, even if there is no value. Okay, so it defaults to variable printing here. Okay, we have our different items here, especially with the 1032. Their thresholds for calculation. And iFirm Taxprep has this item here. What it can do is automatically take RSP contributions as repayment under the home buyer's plan or lifelong learning plan. So if within that tax return, they do show a balance owing on those plans, it will automatically designate any contributions to RSP, PRPP, and SPP to those plans. Go down.
Can you scroll up for a second?
Sure, of course. Just let me know when.
A little more, that was the last question that I wanted to ask. The data is being used, rates used to calculate scenarios.
Okay.
When option 2 is selected, what kind of rates do we have access to?
The rates are the current year rates or subsequent the planner
Okay,
rates.
usually when we do a planner, it's for future years, so ideally
Yeah.
we'd like to subsequent year rates, okay.
Oh,
But we need to select option 2,
So you'd select that for,
and then select subsequent year rates for planners.
okay.
but this is for planners, right? Do we need a separate?
This is for
profile?
scenarios, this is the setup for scenarios. How often do you plan the same year? If you have to plan the same year, then we could set up a profile
For the
for
planner.
planner.
That's
We
what
can
I'm
have a
saying.
default, or like KRP default,
Yeah,
and we can have a KRP
Planner.
planner profile. So we could use a planner profile when we're doing planning, so it'll have some tweaks here. And then we'll have the regular KRP when we're preparing actual returns. So it gives us flexibility.
And you will be able to adjust the rates on planner returns as well.
Thank you, Shannon.
You're welcome. Okay. Now, this is something that everybody used in the desktop version. If you don't know what it is, that's okay. Most people don't know what these are, user-defined cells. They were cells that reside at the bottom of the ID form.
We've never used them.
You haven't used them?
No, it's basically when you want to put something special at the bottom of, they were like, you can,
monitoring?
no. If you wanted to have a special note on something or other.
Management line.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, like user-defined cells,
Oh, we don't use.
right? Like, we've never used it. There was no need for it. The only time I may use this is in the partnership returns, if there's notes that need to go on the actual, at the bottom of the T5013 slip. That's the only time.
Okay.
But in the T1, T3, T2 environment, we don't need it. Okay, understood. Thank you.
So you could activate that, and for example, here I could have my users answer yes, they have Audit Shield, and then I could report on this. But as I said, most people don't use this function. They don't need it.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the settings for authorization. Okay, who did you transmit the authorization for? Okay, and we do have the ability to add the representative and authorization information here. Okay. And here's the level of authorization. So you could do level 1 or level 2.
Okay.
If you are filing with Quebec, we have the section for MR69. So it does have similar options to the authorization. You just have to ensure to fill those out if you are filing that with Revenue Quebec.
Okay. Very standard.
E-file. So this is the selecting of the different returns as well as forms for electronic filing. Okay, so I will be able to file my T1s as well as my T1135s. And you do have the section for T183 as well. Okay, and for Revenue Quebec.
183 electronic signatures.
Just leave the rest. The bottom is the discounter information, so you would not need to fill that out. Client letter. So you mentioned that you had sort of an engagement letter that you were using, like a cover letter?
Engagement letter only for new clients?
Yes, print only for new client is option,
Yes.
Yeah.
which is very good, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you could print only for new clients.
Okay. And is there a cover letter?
You can add an additional letter if you'd like, and I can show you how to do that.
Yes, like. That's what I'm talking about.
No, cover letter is the package.
Oh, yes, okay. How many letters can we add?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
How many letters can we use? So we have a rep letter, and we have just a package cover letter that we use.
In addition to the defaults, you have up to 10 letters.
Fantastic. So we have, yeah, fine, we're good.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, so we can set the conditions if you are printing out that engagement letter and also the engagement period. Okay, let's go down to client letter section. Okay, so this works very similarly to the desktop version. The regular letter, if you have that selected, will look at the tax return and use accordingly the correct client letter. So it would use e-file for e-file clients, paper for paper file clients, bankruptcy, etc. for those clients. So it'll calculate that for you. So usually we recommend using that option right here. Okay. The second options here are only for paper filed returns. So usually what I recommend is setting this to none of the above for this section and letting the regular letter take care of my paper filing clients. And this is the different options when printing out your letter. So how you refer to your firm, your greeting on your letter. Okay, and make sure that you do include firm's logo and heading, that's checked off. Okay, if you'd like your address in the heading section as well, you can check that one off here. And this is the various paragraphs, whether you do want to include those within your regular letter. And we do have the paragraphs to mitigate liability there as well. So just confirming that they did not own foreign property or the TOSI paragraph as well.
Can you stop scrolling for just 1 second? I want to look for the 1135. Include the paragraph including that the taxpayer does not own property with a total cost of more than $100,000. That's the only reason we have a rep letter. Yes.
Yeah.
He said we prepared the return based on information you provided to us. You know, you confirm that you don't own property, and you have 2 tick boxes, yes or no, right?
Right.
But this basically puts it in the letter. You confirm that you don't have it, therefore we're not filing letter. Yes. So it'll be 1 letter. Very nice. Okay, I like this. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. And you can add an opening paragraph. So this is just right underneath the greeting. Closing right underneath the closing statement. Okay, and this is the additional letters to print. Okay, so if you have any additional letters, what you are going to do is you're going to click on this first checkbox. Second, the description, you just enter the name of your letter. So I have one letter to U.S. residents. So anytime I go to print out this return, it is going to print out that additional letter as well. You can add more than one here.
So it's not going to be for everybody, right?
Don't ask me.
Shannon, is that for everybody, or it is only applicable when the email address? No. There are many addresses pointing to a US.
In this case,
the client profile.
In this case, there is no calculation here. So this is sort of either you turn it on and it applies to everybody, or you turn it off. And then you decide on the return whether to print out those additional letters.
We'll have to figure this out because this is a global setting. Question, I have a taxpayer that is multi-jurisdictional, so we e-file in both Ontario and Quebec, let's say, like lawyers that are multi-jurisdictionals.
Yeah.
So that default letter that you suggested at the top when we first started scrolling basically will take care of both federal and Quebec e-file and give us relevant paragraphs.
That one does change according to jurisdiction. So if they are seen as filing in Quebec, it will switch to the TP1 letter instead, which includes a lot of the
But
Quebec
they're also
paragraphs.
filing in Ontario.
Yeah. Sorry?
They're filing in 2 jurisdictions.
Yeah.
So it'll include information for both?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and you can add your additional paragraphs to your default letter. Okay. Are you going to invoice out of Taxprep?
Not at this moment.
Okay, so then you can just leave this blank. And then we just have the interest section, so more than likely you won't adjust anything here, but I'll just note that the prescribed interest rate here is adjustable if you do need to, but usually we're very quick in updating this. Just make sure you hit save anytime you make a change to the prepare profile. I'll hit the cancel and we'll just go back. Okay, so it's all very similar with the corporate. Okay, but you do see for the prepare profile, the most recent covers from 2022 or later, and 2023 or later for T3 and for forms. Okay, before I move forward, is there any questions about prepare profile?
So starting from December 1st, if we just have the time to set up the profile for the most recent year, and then a client come in and say, I need you to take care of my 2019 return, we can still use desktop version to do the 2019 return and e-file, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
as
so
long as that's installed, access will not be removed for previous years for the desktop version.
Okay. Because then we don't have to spend time setting up the old profile, old year profiles.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so that's good. And we can decide later on when we have time to do or not to do. So technically speaking that, you're saying 2017, so we have 7 years of a coverage. So moving to 2025, will we still be able to access 2017 T1 application online, or it's going to be removed?
It will be removed, but when we do remove a year, there's a section in tax prep settings called tax return retention. Okay, and what you'll be able to do is download those that are no longer supported as a desktop file, and you'll be able to open those up in the archive versions of tax prep. Okay. Anytime we do this, we broadcast it quite clear that this is going to occur and that you need to do this as soon as possible. Okay, so what it does is it downloads all of those returns that are falling off as a zip file. When you go into that zip file, it will have the tax prep desktop returns. Okay, and they are available 3 months after you generate them.
And
what happens after 3 months?
As you see, it disappears here.
So are we able to export them and store them elsewhere?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
They give you a download zip file with everything on that pertains to that year, which is gonna fall off the table, so which allows us to create a archive. So Shannon, just what if we run into, once out of the blue moon that we get client coming in and say, I wanted to file 10-year tax return. What do we do in that case? Assuming we are already 100% online.
You'll have access to the Taxprep desktop archives for the last 10 years. So any that are not covered within iFirm Taxprep, you'll be able to download that version of the desktop version and use that to prepare.
Okay.
As long as we have means to have access to older versions. Does it happen every day? No, but it periodically happens. So the ability to have access to older versions is helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And that's definitely why we do provide access to the Taxprep desktop archives so that you have that full 10-year coverage. So let's go to import Taxprep tax files. So if you are planning to import previous year's returns, this is the section you are going to do that within. Okay, and we can import for 2017 or onward, 2016 for T2 and T3 and 4, 2018 and onward. Okay, so all you would do is you would just drop your file here or select a file. I'm just going to navigate to my section where my files are located. So let's bring in 2020. Okay, and you can see these are my 2023 returns. Okay, I can select a few by holding down my control key here. Open, and there are those files here. There is a limit in size of bringing them over, and that's 20 megabytes per file. It's very unlikely that she would have files that large. The only reason I have found that firms have files larger than 20 megabytes is because they have attached a lot of PDF documents and rolled them forward year over year. So more than likely, you're not going to hit that 20 megabyte limit. So once you're ready, you're just going to hit import. And what it is going to do is it's going to show us this warning message. So what this will do is it looks at your contact database in iFirm Taxprep, and we'll look at the SIN number, business number, or trust account number. Okay, if that is blank in iFirm, even if the address and name still matches, it will create a new contact when importing a file from Taxprep Desktop.
That's your
Exercise,
yeah. Problem.
But if it does find that number, it will match it to the record already in iFirm.
So it'll create two separate contacts for the guys that have the same number.
Yeah, because it's go by the SIN
It'll
number.
go by the SIN, so because the SIN is different, but the names are identical, it'll create two separate contacts.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so when that is complete in the Taxprep module itself, underneath this bell icon to the top right-hand corner, you're going to have an import completed. Okay, and then you'll see here I can bring up a report. Okay, and it tells me with Alex there was an error, and if I hover over it, it says the account number is not valid. So what that means is the SIN number is a fake SIN number in his case. It's not recognizing it as a correct number. Okay, but you can see the other two were successful. So you can upload up to 200 files at a time as well. And you can do them in batches. You don't have to do them all at once.
Okay, so we'll obviously have to do multiple batches.
Yeah, it's about
6.
2,800 T2 and T1, I think. 2,600 T2 and T1.
So 13.
13 batches and before T3 and T45.
Okay. All right.
Import templates from Taxprep. So as mentioning earlier, you could import your client letters. Okay, so if you click on import templates, okay, we do have the different products. Make sure to check the correct taxation year. And same thing, we'll just select a file. We go to our client letter. Okay, and I have my letter here. I click on open and import. So you can see that's quite quick. So where that is going to import it to is the settings for your client letters. Okay, so we'll go to Taxprep settings again, and then go to client letters. Okay, so we have the different products, different taxation years. Okay, and if I click on 2, it usually floats to the bottom. Okay, you can see here, there is that letter that I imported. Just make sure when after you import, that the status here has that green circle with a check mark. That means that all of the conditions within the letter are valid, that there's no errors there. If you get a red circle with a line through it, you want to check out that letter and correct any errors that might have occurred.
Does it need to be linked to a form, i.e. this letter will print if a certain form is present in the return?
Yes, it does. Just like Taxprep Desktop, it does need to be attached to a linked form. Okay, so let's do that for the one we just imported. So I'm just going to click on that row. Okay, and you'll just expand out the details section. There's that linked form section. Okay, so I could link it to one of the additional letter, 1 through 10, or I could also link it to one of the standardized letters. So like the engagement letter. So if I imported an engagement letter, I could always remove it from the default one in the system and use my custom one instead.
So we can look at the client letter, the default, the way if it gives it what we want.
Yeah.
And then decide if we want to import or not.
Once we import it, then we roll forward, that will be the imported one going forward to be used for the newer years, right?
Yeah, you'll just need to roll them forward. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you would just need to roll them forward to the new year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's go back to client letter. So you can see there's that roll forward option.
Right.
And then you'll be able to select one and then roll forward. Okay, and there we go. I do have one with an error, so I'll just show you what that does look like. Okay, so you have 3 validation errors detected. I can jump to the error, okay, and it tells me that this condition is not correct. So I can just come in here and remove that. And there we go. It's easy to fix because it does tell you where that error is in the letter.
Programming.
That's poking around and figuring out that we can do.
Mm-hmm.
Jenny and I have been practicing that for a long time.
Okay, I'll just show you how to modify the client letters. Also, what you can do is you add any of your own directly within the system. So you can add a client letter. I could create it from blank, or I could create it from one of the existing here as well. Something that is different within the iFirm tax prep environment is you are able to directly edit any of the defaults here. Okay, so if I wanted to edit my e-file letter, I just click on it.
I like that.
Okay. And there's going to be a button to the bottom left-hand corner, edit the predefined letter. You have to click here before you're able to edit it. And you can collapse that detail section just to give the editor a little more space. So any of the items that are in the curly braces are going to be a comment. Okay, so this appears within the template, but I will not have this printed out in the actual client letter. Okay, just like before, we do have the conditional statements, and you can reference a cell, which is always that blue color. And the condition we're looking for is that green color. And plain text is just that black color. If you want to add a logo here, I'm just going to remove that comment. I can go to Insert, and there's Inline Picture. You can add it from a URL or from your computer. And just like a Word document, you are able to drag and drop that corner and adjust the size. And you can also adjust the orientation by using the different paragraph options here. We do have the different formatting options here that you can bold, italicize, underline, subscript, superscript, and also you can choose a different text color and highlight as well.
So we can screen that without screening it.
You can add bulleted lists. So here I could add a bunch of lists, a numbered list as well. We do have the spacing here, so you can adjust the spacing between your different paragraphs. And we do have the paragraph symbol option here to see where those paragraphs lie. One thing I'm going to recommend here is if you are entering any conditional statements of your own, don't type it in. You do need to use the menu to add the conditional statement. Okay, because it doesn't recognize it if you type it out. Okay, so I'm going to select a cell. Okay, so let's just choose anyone. And you choose your conditional operator, and then that adds it here. And then I could add my text. So you can see editing letters is quite easy within this environment. You're able to add even tables, headers, footers, page numbers, page counts, and adjust the margins, orientation, and add columns within your letter as well. So it is a little more flexible than the client letters in the desktop version.
Where's the preview button?
There is actually, that's the one thing that's different. There is no preview button in here.
So once we messed around and we want to see what it actually looks like, what do we do?
Okay, so what you would do is you would open up a return. Okay, and there is a review tab.
Okay,
Okay, the review tab has an option here, client letter preview.
Okay.
okay,
So I can choose any one of the letters here, and that will generate it here and show me what that looks like based on Elizabeth's return. Just be aware with the client letter preview, it does take a little bit of time because it is looking through several conditions here. And you can go back and forth between the different tabs. So if I make a change here, I save it.
you will push it over.
I go back here. There is a refresh button here. Okay, so I'm able to refresh it and see the changes that I've made here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If you do make a change here and let's say you want to go back to the default version, there always is that button here, reset to the default version. Okay, so we do have the different options here for your client letters. Let's go back to tax prep settings.
Okay.
Yeah, let's take a look at the roll forward settings.
You can do your T2 letters automatically.
So this is the same.
Just the memo, your instructions. Yeah, instruction. Yeah, you don't have to do that.
It's a memo just showing the amount of just
It'll just look good.
No, even the current version desktop, you can do it, it's just you choose to do, I had a conversation. We had this conversation, I have.
I know, or I can, I'll just see how this one works. It just brings it into the T2, like it brings it into.
It has the default template, you just modify it to
When I
whatever
put
you
the
need.
tax return, it'll print.
Yeah.
Okay, it'll save you time.
Yeah.
If it's a one button, it's good.
Okay.
Okay. What's next?
So roll forward settings.
Oh, go forward.
So what items you want to remove, what do you want to sort, and what items you do want to keep when rolling forward for T1, T2, T3, and also your forms. Just like the desktop version, we do have the ability to choose whether the comments on the cell are selected by default to roll forward or are set to always roll forward or not roll forward. And this option here, it sets the default to keep comments by default when rolling forward. And same as the desktop version, you do have the ability here to keep the forms that are open on the newly created return. So when I roll forward from 2023 to 2024 for T1, if I had a T5 and open, that T5 is going to be open on the newly created return as well.
Define open.
So open would be, if I'm on the prepare tab here, whatever forms are listed here as open.
It's like what is that when you open Taxprep?
Oh, yeah, I was having.
57 tabs open and I close them all before I start thinking. Okay, we'll decide if you want to do that. Or have it open fresh and just access the forms that are needed. So if we import, like we link the CRA, we import the CRA data into the return, be it T5, T3, whatever, T4, it'll automatically create a list of forms that are in use or eligible.
Yeah, that's your list of applicable forms here.
Yes, okay, yes. Okay. All right, we'll decide if we want to roll forward. If somebody left 40 tabs open, whether they're needed or not, and to roll that forward and confuse everybody else. Okay.
One item in here that I'm going to introduce you to because it is part of the roll forward settings is the document details and also the document label. So there's something that was not available within the desktop version that'll be new for you. Okay, so the details is a free form type cell here. So I could rename it and say, let's say VIP. I can enter any information here that I would like, and that will populate right here. Okay. As you can see with the details column, I am able to do a sort upon that column, but I'm not able to filter by that column. We have another one called label that's a little more useful because you are able to filter upon that field. Okay, so I can choose a label here from a predefined list. Okay, and you can customize the list here as well. So I could label that, for example, planner return. I've also added an original and an amended return. Okay, so that's labeled that as amended, and it's very easy for me here to pick up my amended and those that have never been amended. And you can see it's easy to select for roll forward in the future. Okay, so what you can do with those labels and details is you can choose whether you are going to keep them when you roll forward. Okay. Usually generally label, you're probably not going to keep that label.
Right, because if you amend the return and roll it forward, it's gonna keep it as amended when it's original.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you don't wanna keep the label, but you wanna keep the details, and the details could be groups, families, whatever.
No, the groups is groups, don't confuse that.
Okay, so what will details be?
Like a packet capital is a VIP, always last minute filing, that's kind of a detail. But the contacted group is already be predefined and be populated as a part of the database that be imported.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see how we will use that section. I mean, it's handy. I understood how it works now, thank you.
I think we can, leave it open for,
Yeah,
once we have a 1 year on the belt, we might be able
We
to
can try to
figure
figure out
yeah.
how to use it.
Yeah, and always with the labels, you can always choose to add something later, and that does appear as a selectable option even on returns you've already created. So
It's just additional K on that return.
okay, so did you have your questions for your user?
No, we haven't. When we're gonna set up the users now for all of them.
Okay.
And then once that's done, we can take a look at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We still have 2 sessions on the admin, so we can, what I would like to do is, we have 2 more hours, Shannon, right? For this admin training. That 2 hours, what are the contents that you have on your agenda, training agenda?
Okay. We actually have 1 more hour of admin training for the settings portion. It's basically we're going to go through all of the rest of the settings that you see here. So setting up print formats, how to customize the PDF file, also looking at return statuses, setting up your labels, setting up the electronic services IDs, looking at diagnostics, and also forms colorization.
So I noticed that every single user has its own access or, e-file authorization status. So in this situation, we can use template to define each individual user's eligibility or authority? Or it's one by one, not by class? We have a small office, that's fine, we can do it one by one and decide on case by case basis. But in the firms, like a 300, 400 people, how do they manage those?
Okay. Are you using, everybody's using the same e-file credentials?
Yes.
Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to set it up here. So you'll set up a profile with your information, and this is going to apply to everyone on the team. Okay. So
okay.
I don't need to go to settings and users and set it up each and every one. So the only reason I would set up this tab here with the e-services is if Lou's was different from everybody else's and he had his own. Okay, but the way I can restrict
was not everyone will have authority to e-file.
Yeah.
So are there, how do we?
You do that by security rights.
So it's security rights. Okay.
Yeah. So Lou here has the staff accountant profile. You can see here, staff accountant profile underneath his security. Okay, so he has all of the security permissions underneath that role.
So this
So
is
if you go
by class, yeah.
Yeah. So if we go into manage profiles and go to tier 5, whatever he has over here on the right hand side is what he has access to do.
Right.
And you can see e-filing is not one of them. So when he goes into iFirm tax prep, he won't even see that this button exists. So yeah, you would restrict by the security rights.
So as you assign roles to everybody, definition of that role will determine whether or not they can see the e-file button.
Correct.
That's all.
That's all.
You know, that kind of answers the question.
And we do offer our staff the e-file, their personal family and friends, families tax return. In that case, how we get around it? Because they don't themselves, they cannot e-file by not giving them the access or authority. Because in the current desktop version, there's no limit. It's everybody can click a button, we just don't advertise it.
It's gotta be by request. Open it for 24 hours. This is your day for e-filing. Not that they're gonna go in and e-file client returns at that point.
Yeah, usually they would have to, in the current state, they would have to ask somebody with e-file credentials that had access to their return to e-file it. But that's going to change in December. We are modifying how kind of the e-file works, especially when contact security is applied to the contact. So that might change, and I'm hoping it'll change for the better.
So we don't know what it's gonna look like yet.
No, I don't even know what it's going to look like yet. I've just been told it's coming. A change is coming in December.
Okay.
Okay, we'll see. We still have time.
It's not the worst case that somebody could just, can come and say, hey, can you just change it? I'm filing my tax return. Okay, change it, bing, and then go back and change it back again. Right? It's not the best scenario, but it's still doable.
Or giving somebody rights to that return.
Right.
Right, so somebody else to go and e-file it, and then.
But then you won't, yeah.
We'll have to figure it out, yeah. Okay.
I know I'm e-filing, so I have that problem, so.
Right.
So Shannon, my next question is, thank you for extending the session a little bit longer. 3-hour user training, that all has to be covered or get done before December 1st, or it is something that we should spread it to in between, like pre and post?
You can do either, because if you want everybody in the system by December 1st, what we can do is do the all staff training, which is the basic training where we go through the basic functionality. And then the admin and advanced would only be attended by a few users who are using the more advanced functions or admin functions. And that can be spread out. So.
Okay. So for regular staff, 1-hour training is sufficient? Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the one everybody's going to be invited to, because we go through basic functionality, how to access the program, etc.
Okay. I
can provide you with a list of the topics that we include in those trainings, so you have a better idea of who should attend what.
Yeah, absolutely. We can take a look and decide. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'll send that to you after our session today.
Okay, thank you.
Were there any other questions for me?
No, not for now, because we have another hour.
Yeah.
Thursday, and then maybe even in between, we will have that, we will dive in, hopefully, and then come up with more questions.
Yeah. Well, if even in between in the next 2 days, like if something comes up, a question, just email me and I'll get right back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.